So my name is John. I'm a recovered alcoholic and drug addict. And today's topic is the Fellowship of the Spirit, FOTS. It's very important to me. It's very dear to me. And I just want to just explain why, what it is, what the word fellowship is, and why it's so important to be part of my life and maybe part of your life as well. I just lost my video. That was weird. And maybe it needs to be part of your life in a deeper sense. So I wanted to read page 17 of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. In the Big Book itself, it talks about the fellowship 63 times. And I believe like it is a very important part of balance in a recovered person's life and even on the outside of that in a spiritual person's life, that this is basically makes up 1/3 of my recovery program, and even 1/3 of my day, let's say. So where we read is there's a solution. So where there was no solution in this world and in this world today, in the opiate epidemic and the fentanyl crisis, is that there is no solution for addiction that medical system, that psychiatry, that any pharmaceutical has ever come up with. There's no solution to addiction itself until this book was written, until that we discovered that we can have a personal relationship with God, and through that is my only hope, but for the grace of God, to be able to displace my thinking, the way I think, the way I believe about myself, my false identities, my belief systems, my principles, my values, all of that through a personal relationship with the Spirit of God, which transforms me from the inside out. So it can be a very hard sell to low bottom addicts. And what I mean by that is that you can still manage your life pretty well, that you're not getting caught, that it's not really affecting your job or your work, or it's the perception of that it isn't affecting any addiction, whether it's video games, to pornography, to food, to relationships, adrenaline, work. Any of those will affect the people probably closest to you. So that's what we're reading, is that there is a solution, that there is hope from a hopeless situation. And the message of the severity of the message is so great that I believe it's hard for people to grasp onto it that aren't desperate and aren't hopeless, because it actually demands like all of your addiction to be focused in your relationship with God. And through that, you will be relieved of a mental obsession, which takes you back to the addiction, and the addiction itself keeps you trapped where you are. And that's really what freedom is being free of the mental part and the physical part as well. And then having a manager for your internal condition. And so this is what we read. We of Alcoholics Anonymous know thousands of men and women who were once just as hopeless as Bill. Nearly all have recovered. They have solved the drink problem. We are average Americans. Hey, I bet there was some Canadians getting to that number. All sections of this country and many of its occupations are represented, as well as many political, economic, social, and religious backgrounds. We are people who normally would not mix. Just like we come together on Zoom. Normally, we might not even be friends, but there exists among us a fellowship, a friendliness, and an understanding which is indescribably wonderful. We are like the passengers of a great liner the moment after rescue from shipwreck, when camaraderie, joyousness, and democracy pervade the vessel from steerage to captain's table. Unlike the feelings of the ship's passengers, however, our joy in the escape from disaster does not subside as we go our individual ways. The feeling of having shared a common peril is one element in a powerful cement which binds us together. But that in itself would never have held us together as we are joined now. The tremendous fact, there are a bunch of facts. This is a tremendous fact. This is not the central fact or the great fact. You can look those up. But this is a tremendous fact. For every one of us that we have discovered a common solution. So we have a common peril and a common solution, which is the cement that binds us together. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. This is the great news this book carries to all who suffer from alcoholism. And when we say alcoholism, we talk about the ism, the unmanageability that brings us into these alternative ways of dealing with things through a spiritual, through any other form of dealing with things. So we go to whatever gives us this sense of ease and comfort. So that's kind of what fellowship of the Spirit is that we come together, we are bonded together in a common peril. So something that was going to happen to us, something that we saw that would end at some point in our lives, that the futility and the hopelessness of being trapped and a slave to the things that kind of give us this ease and comfort, the manageability that we cling on to manage our internal condition. We have that in common. Wherever you are with that, there's a hopelessness that we have that is either going to end in the death of ourselves, whether that's physical, emotional, spiritual. We will become bankrupt and maybe incarcerated, maybe walking dead, and maybe in a hospital system for the rest of our lives. And so with that being the one part, and the other part is that we found a way out, and that's a spiritual connection with God. And so when I think of fellowship, I hear the words give. So we come together to give, to support, to strengthen. We have a shared experience. We share with each other. We build each other up. It's kind of like an association. We're associated with each other. It is, I believe, simple by nature. It's personal, and there's unity around it. And we seek the interests of those that are a part of. So those are all kind of characteristics of what it means to be in a fellowship, be in the fellowship of the Spirit, because that is the Spirit that binds us together. And I've worked with, and since COVID, I've met so many people around the globe, from Australia to India to parts of Asia to England, and wherever I've gone, I've always been shocked at the same Spirit. They have a different dialect. So when you go to England or you go to Australia or India, they'll have a different dialect on their story, or kind of different angles of their recovery process. It's all the same, but just a different way of expressing it, or different experiences. And it's really cool. But in the end of it, it's the same Spirit, the Spirit of God's love. So that's been really interesting. In Acts 2, in Acts 2:42 of the Bible, it talks about the early church being formed, and that is a fellowship. That is where people gathered around in the name of Jesus. And it says that they devoted themselves to the teachings of the apostles and to the fellowship, the breaking of bread, and to prayer. Seeing the work of God, the miracles of God, and for those that are praying for miracles, seeing that actually happen. They were together and shared and believed everything in common with those that were in need. And so that's what a fellowship is bringing people together on the Spirit of God. That's what our fellowship is fellowship of the Spirit, is bringing people together in the name of Jesus under the banner of a loving God that will solve all of our problems. So we come together to be able to share that good news, but then we reach out to others and help others received the same freedom. Um, on page 89 of the big book, it talks about um, the real reason, or the real fruit or the real result of having a relationship with God. So when I am rescued from that drowning ship and the hopelessness of it, I am compelled through the rescue mission that happened to me is to rescue other drowning people. And so that's what binds us together, is that I'm compelled to do something that happened to me. And so we come together to strengthen and encourage each other, but to bring in new people. So the whole point of the 12 steps is to have a relationship with God, to be filled with his spirit, and then that is going to compel you to help other people. And so they've written a whole chapter of, as you've had this experience, what's going to happen is you're going to have a compulsion to help other people. And it says this practical experience on page 89 of the big book shows that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. Not just meeting them and being friends with them. Like, I think sometimes we get fellowship and socializing mixed up. This is intense work with other alcoholics. Are you working? Are you part of a fellowship? And are the people in it, and are you working intently with other people with your same first step problem or your line of transmission? Are you intensively working with other alcoholics? Fill in the blank. It works when other activities fail. This is our 12th suggestion. Carry the message to alcoholics. You can help when no one else can. You can secure their confidence when others fail. Remember, they are very ill. Life will take on new meaning to watch people recover, to see them help others, to watch loneliness vanish, to see a fellowship grow up about you, to have a host of friends. This is an experience you must not miss. We know you will not want to miss it. Frequent contact with newcomers and with each other is a bright spot of our lives. Is it? Like, ask yourself the question, what's the bright spot of your life? When people, a part of your fellowship, walk in the door, or when you're inconvenienced by somebody that relapsed again and again, is that the bright spot of your life? Because it's suggesting that if you're part of this fellowship, that's what's going to happen. And for somebody always feeling on the outside of things, my whole life of being adopted and in my family of origin, I always felt like that I was apart from and not a part of. And as I got into recovery, I remember at the very beginning being so confused of like, I want to do this. I don't want to do that. I want to be able to function as a father and a husband. And I don't want this, like, what is this circus that I keep getting myself into? I don't want to do this anymore. And like, I would go out with friends and 10, 11, 12 o'clock, you get kind of this last call thing. Everybody's going home because we all have to work in the morning. And then I'm going to do extracurricular activities for 3 days or 2 days. And I'm not doing what I want to do because I'm being controlled by this substance. It was very confusing. And I ended up on the streets of Ottawa trying to take my life, and I couldn't live and I couldn't die. And there I was, finally got into a treatment center where people were explaining that what I was going through was absolutely normal. And I'm like, you're all like me? This is so exciting. I'm not messed up. Like, I am a mess, but I'm not, like, you can fix this. Like, a relationship with God will fix this. Okay, I can't wrap my mind around that right now, but wow. Like, there is hope for me. Like, I'm not stuck like this for the rest of my life until I die, or I'm in some sort of institution for the rest of my life. Like, that was incredible to me. Like, I remember sitting around a table and we started telling stories, and maybe it wasn't the healthiest thing to do because maybe you shouldn't be sharing war stories. there was somebody on the phone with his wife, and they could hear our conversation because there was like five men kind of like one-upping each other. Like one guy lost his license twice in one day. He got caught. They let him out. He went back to get his car. He got pulled over later that day driving drunk again. And I'm like, oh wow, that's incredible. How could that even happen? That didn't happen to me, but this happened to me. One guy said that he took his windshield washer fluid container and put vodka in it and ran the line from his windshield wiper through his vent. And then whenever he pressed on the windshield wipers, it would spray into his mouth. And I'm like, that's genius. Why didn't I ever think of that? It's not genius, but at the time I was like, oh wow, like that's incredible that you could actually do all that. I don't know what happens when he actually needed to wash his windows, but I don't think he cared. It's more about the vodka. And we just sat around the table talking like this, and the guy gets off the phone and he goes, my wife thinks you're all nuts. And maybe that was good for her to hear, because maybe this woman needed to hear that maybe her husband wasn't that far off, that there was hope. But we shared this common peril that was going to kill all of us, and how desperate of a situation that we all found ourselves in. And from that table, I don't even know how many people are alive or sober, but I am, because I entered into this fellowship of the Spirit. I first had a spiritual connection with the power of God through the process of the 12 steps. And then I entered into these meetings. And some of these meetings are inconvenient because most of them are at night, or now on Zoom and then at night. And then I found that they take up time. And now you're starting to meet newcomers, and then they take up a lot of time. And I get to the point where I'm like, this is too much for me, or this is a waste of time because no one's getting sober around me. What's the point of this? But every time I talk to a newcomer, I get excited for the possibility that he could grab on and grasp to the Spirit of God. And I believe COVID made us really lazy. COVID made us so that we didn't have any meeting muscles. And my encouragement to anybody listening to this is start working out your meeting muscles, because we need you and other people need you. But I would say that you need the meetings more than anybody else. And it's not about going to meetings, because meetings aren't going to keep you sober, but you have to be part of something bigger than you. You have to be part of a group conscience. You got to be part of a working fellowship that is growing and that is revolved around the Spirit of God. And so many times we just miss that, or we just come in and do our time and then go away. But are we actually getting phone numbers? Are we actually excited that there are newcomers? Are we meeting newcomers outside of the meeting? But the meeting is kind of like this hub that brings us all together, that we can sit and talk around about God. And there are meetings, maybe you have different fellowships. I know that I'm a part of another fellowship, and sometimes it gets very awkward when you talk about God. The whole point of the 12 steps or the fellowship of the Spirit is to talk about God. Solution oriented, not looking at how bad my addiction was, because that actually separates a room. It does, because you could have somebody that has a drinking problem, but they've never missed a day of work. And somebody else is talking about how many times they've been in jail, and how many people that, how many jobs that they've had and been fired from, and all of that, the horror stories. But we can talk about what the addiction does inside of me, and then transmit the line of communication where I was rescued from this through the Spirit of God, through turning my will and my life over to coming to believe that God can be the Spirit that's guiding my life and not the spirit of alcohol. And I really want to encourage people to get involved in meetings that aren't just necessarily cozy and comfy for you. I started doing that this year, is going to a different meeting that I would prefer probably not to. And yeah, it's not my high priority. It's my extra meeting that I can talk to the newcomers. And I would say mostly in that meeting, there's people under a year of sobriety. And there's now a treatment center that comes to it. And it gets a little bit spicy sometimes. I brought some of my friends, and it's like one person like left almost hyperventilating because how how opposed to God people were in the meeting. And I'm like, I know it's a little bit aggressive, but man, like that guy needs hope. Like that guy is hopeless, and he doesn't even see that there's a solution outside of a relationship with God. Like he's still trying to figure that out. Isn't this a great place? And I was kind of excited for somebody else to share the pain of that meeting with me because it was a bit aggressive. And I was like, oh, glad we had that shared experience. This is hard ground. And I really want to encourage us to really get involved, not necessarily in the cozy meeting that we all like, that we come together. A lot of us come to upper room recovery meeting. That's a great meeting. It's solution oriented. You know that you can talk about Jesus and you can bring a Bible and we're all cozy together. And we do bring, there's newcomers coming all the time. But can we get out into another fellowship and be part of something bigger than us, something that might disagree with you? But we come in the name of Jesus. We come in the name of the fellowship of the Spirit, and that Spirit is a spirit of love. That Spirit is a spirit of light. That Spirit is not timid. It's a spirit that will open the eyes of the blind. And so I would really encourage us to not just stay in our little silo, but to get out there and be the light of God's love in different fellowships. And people will be attracted to it. It'll repel some people. If you want to see the oxygen leave a room, just start mentioning the name of Jesus. But how do I go into different rooms that recovery is a part of the 12-step fellowships and be loving and be attractive to those that are blind or in the dark? How do I actually do? And now you're starting to game plan and think and pray for certain people. And that's what's exciting. I believe that's what's exciting. Because now I'm on mission. Now I'm going into kind of a different territory, and I'm being the salt and love and light that is the Spirit of God within me. And then I can bring them into my home group. Then we can start to plant seeds and start working with the newcomer and start praying with them and start opening their eyes to a different way of living, a different life, the spiritual life, one connected to the Spirit of God. And so I just want to encourage everybody with that is we got to work out our meeting muscles. I understand that lives are busy and whatnot, but if this is in the triangle, the fellowship is one side of the triangle, then that should be a very important part of our lives and our recoveries. Meetings don't keep us sober. I understand that meetings and activities can replace alcohol or whatever it is that you're going to, but it's not going to sustain your sobriety. But we go to the meetings to bring our love and our light into them. Where we saw Bill's story when Alcoholics Anonymous was just starting, he said that they meet frequently so that the newcomer may find the fellowship that they're seeking. So the fellowship is something that we're all really seeking, to be a part of something, to gather, to be safe. I have a fellowship. That Spirit actually is compelling me through my relationship, through prayer, meditation, and connecting with God on a daily basis. That Spirit is compelling me to go pass on that message. And so that's how we grow, is that we buy into the fellowship, we get connected to the Spirit, we join and be part of a fellowship, and then part of our daily activity is passing on the message. And so part of that, you could go into different fellowships and be the love and light that other people need in a loving way, not in a Bible thumping way, not in a like, hey, you're all wrong kind of way, but in a really designed way that God's going to speak to you to be a line of transmission to somebody else.